Welcome back to another week of Yield Lab DeFi AMA live stream, where we talk about anything DeFi oriented in Web3. We always take a specific, maybe a deeper dive on Neutron oriented applications, but really the floor is open for any DeFi app in Web3. Come with questions. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to drop them in the Twitter live stream chat or on the YouTube live stream chat, and I will try and answer any questions that you guys ask. And also, if I don't know anything, I'll try and research it and we can talk about it again next week. So there are a few things that that I planned for today to talk about on the schedule. So these topics are recently there was a exploit, and the Neutron Foundation is an exploit on, so there was a recent exploit on the Mars protocol in December, and the Neutron Foundation has provided some USDC relief for affected users. We'll go over how to claim that. The drop protocol is winding down and they are distributing revenue, so we're going to talk about how to claim revenue, the Atom, if you were farming the droplet campaign. Also, there's a bit of a UI update on the Supervaults as part of the Neutron app. And then also we're going to talk about two DeFi applications, one of which is Hydro, which is an app deployed on Neutron, and another is SHRED.fi, which is a delta neutral stablecoin yield app. So we're going to do deep dives in SHRED for sure, and talk about Hydro because they're launching publicly soon. Okay, so let's get into it. Welcome everyone to the YouTube and to the Twitter. Let's see who's here. Blank, 5 on it, cute Colt. Thanks guys, thanks for showing up as always. Let me just make sure that the X live stream is going. Okay. Looks like it's running, so now I have both chats open. So how are you guys doing? I mean, market friggin' sucks. Bitcoin is in the shitter, and I hope we've kind of done the most of the dumping over there, Bitcoin. So hopefully we can turn that around soon. Okay, let's get into it. The first thing that I want to talk about was the Mars hack claim portal. So let's bring up the tweet. Okay, so this was the tweet from Neutron that the Mars claim portal is open, and so you can go to the Neutron Twitter page and search down, and you find this URL, app.neutron.org/Mars hack claim. So if on December 14th there was a exploit of the Mars protocol in which the exploiter was able to drain almost 1 million USDC from USDC lenders. And so this was done by using the perps, the Neutron perps market, by in like the same block, the exploiter was shorting and then shorting again and then closing one of their positions. And they were able to like repeat this within each block, and what that allowed them to do is forego credit account health checks. So basically allowed them to make these positions even though they were already liquidated with no collateral in their credit account. And so they did this a bunch of times and was able to drain about $1 million of USDC. And so since then, the Mars Protocol Foundation has utilized the safety fund and like a portion of the funds that they had to try and reduce how much all of the USDC lenders suffered as a loss, and the result was about a 29% haircut on their USDC lent positions. So obviously that sucks, and the Neutron Foundation also chipped in to try and provide relief for these users who lost USDC. And so they were not able to make everyone whole because there was still, I think, like a $600,000 hole. But what they did do is they used a method. Maybe I can bring it up here. Yeah, here. So what this method does is it takes like who lost the a credit account that lost the smallest amount of dollars. So let's say that it's a $1 haircut that represents 30% of their position. So if you were lending $3, you would have had a haircut of about $1. So that fills up like the first least affected user. That person is made whole. And then it goes to the next person. Maybe the next person lost $2. Okay, is there enough funds in the relief fund to make this one person whole? Okay, yes. So there was like a total of, I think, a little over $100,000, which went to this relief strategy. And so, you know, make the $2 person whole, make the $10 person whole. This person lost 1,000, so then you can keep like filling up. Of course, the people who were lending like the most, the people that were lending $100,000, $200,000, those people were not able to be made whole because there's only $100,000 of relief was provided. But I think there was still like 80 to 90% of lenders were able to be made whole. So yeah, unfortunately, not everyone was able to go away unscathed from this event, but you know, hopefully a lot of people were able to at least claim something. So how you would do that is you would go to the link that I sent, and it will bring you to this page. You will connect your wallet. Maybe I'm already connected. You'll have to sign a waiver. So a waiver will pop up, and it will say something like, you know, I'm claiming this USDC and it's in good faith from the New Trump Foundation, blah, blah, blah. If you want to claim the USDC, you have to hit that you agree to the terms. If you are eligible to receive anything, you'll see a number pop up here, and then you claim it, and then it'll say that you have nothing to claim. So I already claimed for this wallet, so sorry I can't give you the full demo, but the process is really simple. You just connect your wallet and you claim. So this, you know, you might be eligible for this for a lot of different reasons. If you were just straight lending USDC on Mars, of course you're eligible because you suffered the haircut, but also maybe you had an open perp position in bull versus bear. Bull versus bear used the perpetuals from Mars, and the collateral you used to open those perps was USDC, and that USDC was being lent on Mars. So if you were in Jade, so Jade JSD was a stablecoin that was auto compounding because it was lending on Mars and earning the lending rate from Mars. So if you were holding JSD, Jade, you know, you are affected also. If you were deposited into a managed vault, for example, if you were in my vault, the Delta Neutral vault, then you were also affected because this vault was lending stables, and other vaults were also. So a lot of these vaults were probably lending stables. So it's worth going to check out this portal to see if your wallets are eligible for anything, because you might have missed something. Did you guys claim anything? I know I helped a lot of people, a lot of DAOs also. Like, for example, in the chat here we have Qutes and Big Data. I know they both had positions in managed vaults, and so they had suffered some losses, and you can go and claim from DAO. So like if your DAO deposited into any of these vaults, then you can go make a proposal on DAO to go claim USDC. So that's great. I hope everyone is able to get some money back there. Okay, next order of business is the drop revenue distribution. So let's move on to drop. So drop was a liquid staking protocol in the Cosmos, and their biggest liquid stake tokens were DAtom and DNTRN. And so they recently announced that they were sunsetting the protocol. Not enough liquidity in the interchain to sustain the company. And so what they did, they ran a droplet program. So that was like a points program for about a year, and people had farmed this protocol, including myself, farmed the droplets for a year, and then they said they were shutting down. So that obviously sucks. No one's happy about it, but at least they have honored what they said to distribute the revenue that they had collected over the course of the year. Unfortunately, a lot of the, most notably Atom was the biggest token in their revenue source, and it has come down a lot in the past year. So the revenue in dollars that they're able to distribute is much less than what it was a year ago, like as they were collecting the revenue. But so they're going to distribute this. It amounted to 42,000 Atom. And so if you were farming droplets, then you connect your wallet, and based on how many droplets you have, you'll receive some Atom. Based on talking to some people and seeing how much people farm their droplets versus how much Atom they claim, they definitely did a bottom heavy airdrop here. And so if you farmed like a ton of droplets, the amount of Atom you receive per droplet is actually less than if you farmed only a little bit of droplets. And so that's pretty nice, because there were a few very large wallets that accounted for a lot of droplets, like a lot of the farmed potential of this airdrop. And so if they did an even distribution for droplets, most people would get even less than what they got. And people were already like a little upset with how much they received, because it wasn't a lot. Because, yeah, I mean, 42,000 Atom was only like $100,000 in general distributed. So it's not nothing, but it's also not, some $1 million airdrop that makes everyone rich. And so if you did farm it, even at all, you should just check your wallet. Just like the Mars claim, it's free money. You might as well check your wallet and see if you're eligible. And so here's the tweet about it. And then what the process for doing it is, you go to the Drop website. Drop.money is the website, and you can scroll down to launch app. Actually, I think you have to go to the droplets page. This is when you farmed, droplets.drop.money. So this is where you could track all of your droplets as you were farming, and then scroll down, view rewards, connect your wallet. This might take a second to load. Okay, here we go. I didn't even know this wallet was eligible. I must have, actually, yeah, that's true. So what we did a lot on this channel is we used liquid stake tokens to play with Mars, and it made DeFi, first of all, very interesting, but also very cost efficient. And this is something that I really haven't seen a liquid stake token so integrated in really any of Web3. So if you do know any of these really integrated liquid stake tokens, like, please let me know, because I'm always looking for puzzle pieces to put together. But what we did a lot, for example, was use D-Atom as collateral on Mars. So your collateral is auto compounding at like 14% APR. And then on perpetuals, you can then short Atom. So what we have is a delta neutral position where you're earning both the funding rate of shorting Atom and also the auto compounding staking rate of Atom. This was like just very simple, and very profitable. So we did this a lot on this channel as like one strategy you can use. And yeah, it looks like because of that, we can claim 0.03 Atom. We didn't get very many points at all. What is this, rank 7,000 for the airdrop, but whatever, we got like 6 cents, so we might as well claim it. Cool, so that's how you claim the drop revenue distribution. If you got a bunch of money, then that's cool, you can tweet about it, but that's drop right there. Okay, we're done with drop. Okay, yeah. I will, before I jump into the 2 apps that I want to talk about, which are Hydro and Shred, I want to just show a quick update to the Neutron app that was made. And this was specifically on the Supervaults page. So if you've been farming in the Bitcoin Finance campaign, which is where you can earn real yield on Bitcoin using Max BTC, which is an auto compounding Max BTC token, earning between 5 and 10% APR in Bitcoin, and Supervaults, which are liquidity pools that are that adjust the pricing of the assets based on the Oracle, and so they are able to concentrate liquidity around the current Oracle price of the asset. So this leads to like much less risk of them permanent loss. And then also Amber, which is an app that allows you to do leverage looping on max BTC. And so it allows you to stay 1x exposure to max BTC, to BTC, but you are able to multiply the yield that you get from max BTC. And so those three apps kind of make up the Bitcoin Finance campaign. And what we updated recently was the whole Bitcoin Finance campaign UI. And so now there's featured positions. So if you don't know, if you're overwhelmed by this large list down here, then you can just look at a few of the featured positions. You can filter out by different assets. Maybe you only want to look for different liquidity positions using wrapped BTC, then here you go. There are some options for Supervaults, some options for Astroport. These are different liquidity protocols. And so this was nice because it really allowed users to navigate the campaign much easier. And even once you connect your wallet, this section shows you your total deposits, how many rewards that you've earned in the current phase, and what your multiplier is. And so now the Supervaults page got a revamp, so it looks in line with the Bitcoin Finance tab. Again, you have some featured Supervaults. Now, the biggest challenge here was that some Supervaults are involved in the Bitcoin Finance campaign, and some of them are not. And so the reward structure for how each of these pools are earn is different. And so if you see here this tooltip on rewards, you can see that the pools that have NA don't have any external incentives. It's just coming from auto compounding the swap fees. So as people swap through this pool, maybe it's through the Neutron app, maybe it's through Skip or interchain arbitrage, swap fees are accumulated and go back into your position. And so if there's an NA here, that's what you see. So it looks like I'm in the Neutron USDC Supervault, which is currently earning 5% just in swap fees. And yeah, these are nice statistics. Looking at volume is an important thing when you're looking at whether you're entering a liquidity pool or not. The more volume, the more swap fees are going into the vault. And yeah, so this is like the update to Supervaults. I think it looks really nice, and I think it'll help people navigate and decide which pools they want to enter. Let's see if there are any messages up to this point, and then I'll jump into Hydro. Okay. Okay, Hydro Markets. This is an app that was deployed on Neutron a long time ago. What they are probably most known for is you can stake Atom and also recently Neutron, and you get to control the treasury of Atom and Neutron that Hydro controls. And so this is kind of a solution to a lot of protocols were going into the Cosmos Hub, and lots of chains, and asking the community pool for funds to either support liquid staking pools or maybe bootstrap lending supply on various markets of different tokens. And so this Hydro was kind of a solution to that. So now Hydro was given a bunch of different tokens. Like it started out with Atom, and then people would stake Atom to Hydro, and then you would get to the protocols would have to bid the Hydro stakers, and so meaning the protocols would then have to pay to bribe the Hydro voters to then vote for where they can direct the Atom that Hydro holds. And so now protocols have to go through basically Hydro to instead of the community pool to get allocations for different bootstrapping initiatives. So I think it's a nice solution to that problem, and it's been really successful in that regard. People have been earning extra staking rewards, basically, so that you get the regular staking rewards, and then on top of that, you get the bribe rewards. And they've successfully distributed a lot of Atom to a lot of different protocols within the Cosmos over, the past year or so. I don't know how long it's been live for. And so on top of that, they're now building another product called Inflow, and these are vaults, and so these are managed vaults that people can deposit into. Right now, they're only in private deposit, and so I want to talk a little bit about which tokens. Yeah, okay, I don't know where they have it here, but we can just go straight to their website here. Hydro Markets, I have it right here. And so here are the Inflow vaults. And so this is like their new product, and it's in private deposits now, but it will be going live soon. I don't know the exact date, sometime soon. Classic. And you'll be able to deposit USDC, Bitcoin, or Atom into these 3 vaults, and then and do nothing. I mean, I think this is kind of the direction that a lot of DeFi is going, is that there are very sophisticated DeFi users that can maybe manage their own complex strategies using bots or using information and tooling that not everyone has access to, and they can get a really high competitive rate on their strategies. But that takes a lot of resources, it takes a lot of attention, and so there's also people that they want to also get a lot of yield, but they don't have as much tools and maybe attention to manage these positions. And so historically, the only DeFi that those participants could do is staking, because you just hit stake and you earn a yield and you do nothing and you don't have to worry about it. Maybe you have your own other jobs and you can't manage your DeFi positions. You don't want to deal with leverage on your phone while you're at another job. That's totally fine. So yeah, like staking, LPing, we're kind of the only DeFi, or lending, we're kind of the only DeFi operations that these people could do. And so something like managed vaults really allows this set of participants to increase the yield that they can earn. There are trade-offs, because there's custody or management risks. So you're saying that you're giving up your ability to manage your positions, and you're trusting that the new managers will do a good job managing your funds, and that's the trade-off. And so a lot of people, I think, are willing to take this risk because maybe you're not aping into one vault with all of your life savings, but usually they have very competitive rates, and sometimes that's better than what you as a participant can earn. And of course, look at the track record of different vault managers of what they have, and the higher the transparency, the better. And so there's now, I'm kind of rambling, but we're stemming into 2 separate management categories, I think, one of which is entirely on-chain DeFi vaults. And so these you can track, everyone can track immediately what is the status of this vault, where are they deploying into, and then you can go and see, do I like where this vault is deploying into, and if there's a problem with it, you immediately know, because it's all on chain. And so that's the most transparent way of doing managed vaults, and I think this is appealing to a lot of people. Alternatively, there are semi-on-chain, semi-off-chain custodial vaults, which are harder to track, harder transparency, and then these require a larger trust assumption from the user. And that's, everyone has to make those decisions for themselves if they prefer a fully on-chain transparent vault, or something that's half custody, half off-chain, and maybe they're able to get higher yields or do different actions that are not fully on-chain, and maybe that allows them to make a more productive vault. And so those are some things to consider when thinking about managed vaults. I ran a managed vault on Mars called Delta Neutral. It's now been shut down. It was a lot of fun to manage, and in this case, everything was on chain, extremely transparent, because it could not even leave Mars. Like everything was done in Mars. So at any time you could see the balances, you could check performance and look at the position. So this is kind of like all the way on one side of the spectrum for transparency. And yeah, so that's something to consider when looking at vaults. So the inflow vaults, there'll be 3. Back to Hydro. The inflow vaults, there'll be 3: USDC, Bitcoin, and Atom. They show here the yield for each of them. So for USDC, oh, one thing I do want to mention also. So another thing that these vaults are sometimes good at is they have like more eyes. This is when I said more resources and more attention. So they might be able to find opportunities that you are not able to find or you don't even know exist. And maybe these opportunities are short-lived. And so this is something that a lot of like AI bot agents were doing on, I think, Arbitrum or something. And they would find if there was a spike in lending APR for USDC, and then they would like automatically allocate a bunch of USDC to capture that spike. And when that spike is gone, because of course more people come in to start lending, they can then withdraw the USDC and move it back to another lending market that has like a higher rate. And that like agility allows a very attentive vault managers to give in general like higher APRs. So looks like their inflow vault for USDC is yielding over 8% APY, which is actually really good for USDC. And of course you want to look at the TVL. So for 640K, that's how much they have for these private deposits. So if that number is appealing to you, then you might be interested in participating in the public round for USDC vault. For their Bitcoin vault, 3.33%, and that's 1.57 Bitcoin TVL. Again, if you look at Bitcoin yields across Web3, they're so low. And if this is something that you can just stick in and like not worry about it, then that's still a great rate. And again, it comes down to manage like protocols and trust. And so like you can look at, do you trust the Hydro protocol? Do they have a good record? Do you like the individual positions that they're depositing into? And maybe that's more important to you than chasing like a 10% APR on Bitcoin that maybe you don't, that might not be sustainable, or on an app that you're not familiar with. Yeah, so we'll keep talking about these specific vaults. I just want to go over them first. And so Atom, like 17% APY. So the staking APY for Atom, I think, is like 14%. So this is a bit of a boost on top of that. And that's got almost $1 million of Atom. And so these are all in private deposits. I thought I read here, if you want to get into the private round, you can contact them. What just happened? What did I just do? Okay, here. Well, these are the vaults. Once you connect to your wallet, you can see USDC vault, the Bitcoin vault, and the Atom vault. And so this is what I think is pretty interesting. If you scroll down, here's transparency. And so you can see where are they allocating their USDC, in what percentages, like what are the APRs, what are these protocols. So this is just a good place to learn about where can I get yield on USDC, like where are they depositing. So let's see, Yo protocol. Have you ever heard of it? If not, go check it out. Multi-chain protocol yield optimizer. Mostly on base. Okay, there's a security overview with an open source GitHub. They did audits. Sounds good. Okay, they've got 100K in there, which is 16% of their total allocation. It doesn't say like what the actual APR is from this specific deployment, but we have to assume that averaging all these different positions, they're getting 8.2%. So, okay, well, that's cool. 1 day, 7 day, that's helpful information. Okay, so say you're like, okay, I don't want to deposit into this vault, but I do want to find like new venues for getting yield on USDC, this could be a place to start, a good list to start checking out. Same thing for Bitcoin. And this is what I was saying, like, you know, maybe you don't want to do the 10% APY, and of course you can go to the Neutron like Bitcoin finance campaign and get over 10% APY on your Bitcoin, but there are different conditions that you have to like adhere to for the Bitcoin finance campaign on Neutron. Remember, you have to lock your deposits into, I mean, they're not locked, soft locked. So keep your Bitcoin in the campaign during the whole phase. If you withdraw your Bitcoin from the Bitcoin finance campaign, you forfeit the rewards that you have accrued. So maybe you're not comfortable with this kind of reward structure. In something like a vault where you're earning 3.3% APY, but you don't have the restriction of having a soft lock, maybe that's more appealing to you. So you forfeit some of the yield, but you earn but in turn you get flexibility. There's also the how you claim rewards for the Bitcoin finance campaign. You can vest them, like in order to get the most amount of rewards, you have to vest linearly over 2 months. So maybe you don't want to come back, claim, sell your rewards, auto compound, like deal with that. And you just want to let someone else do all the claiming for you. That could be, again, another reason that you might choose a vault. And so, yeah, you can scroll down here and see that 100% of the deposits into this Bitcoin vault are actually in the Neutron's Bitcoin finance campaign. So they're lending on Amber with 2/3 of the deposit, and they're also in the Max BTC Rep BTC Supervault. And again, you can check it out. You can read about Supervaults, you can read about the audits and the risk review. So this is great. If you want yield on Bitcoin, then you can deposit directly into either of those, into the campaign, or potentially deposit into this vault. Same thing for Atom. Yeah, like what are they doing? Okay, so they're staking with a good portion of the vault, and then they're lending. Looks like lending on Mars. There's a buffer and liquid stake token redemption. So this is another thing we talk about a lot on this channel. If there's a liquid stake token that is currently trading below the redemption rate, it might make sense to buy up that token and then unbond it so that you get more of that token than you paid to buy the depegged liquid stake token. You have to wait 22 days for this strategy to come to completion. But if your only purpose is like maximizing your Atom bag and you're not worried about the dollar cost of Atom, the strategy is really good. And it's not just for Atom, it's for any token that has a liquid stake token. If you're bullish on the underlying token, then this arbitrage is very profitable. Okay, let me check the comments to see if anyone says anything about Hydro so far, and then we can talk a little bit more about it. Yeah, Galuxe mentions that you can go into each of the vaults and look at the strategies that they're deploying into. But he said the APY does not change though. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. I haven't I haven't looked too detailed. Is this the APY maybe you're saying doesn't change? It looks like it would change because they have a 1-day, 14-day. But yeah, come back if you're interested in deploying to any of these vaults. I would definitely like check it out first, come back day to day and see what's changing, what their deployments are. You can even join I think they have a Hydro Telegram, and start asking questions for yourself if you want to learn more about the product or what Hydro is. And just as a disclaimer to Hydro, I am one of the vault managers or advisors, and so I talk to the people from Hydro. I look for different opportunities, and we talk about risk and risk adjusted rewards together, and so we can learn about where is the best place to deploy the funds that are in these vaults. Hey, access denied, joining from the Twitter. Nice to have you here. Okay, so this is Hydro. Actually, next week for the Neutron live stream, we're gonna have Hydro on as guests. So next Thursday at 4 p.m. UTC. Let me confirm that so I don't get that wrong. Well, yeah, the normal time. I think it's 4 p.m. UTC. We'll have Hydro on as guests, and so me and Evan and the guys from Hydro will talk about Hydro, and a lot of this might be review if you have watched this and you also joined the live stream, but we might be able to squeeze some alpha out of them for like when exactly they're launching and if there are going to be any extra incentives on top and how exactly the process will go. Okay, so that's done with Hydro. I want to leave some time for Shred, which is the next app on our list to talk about today. Okay, goodbye Hydro for now. Okay, so the next, and I'm excited about this because, so if you like know anything about me, you know that this is my beloved Vault Delta Neutral, and how were we able to like achieve such a high yield on USDC is because of the underlying strategy that is used in not just Athena, but also like in this Mars Delta is Vault, and it's something we talk about like all the time on this channel, and it's Delta neutral strategies. And so in this Vault, what we did is we used liquid stake tokens as collateral to then short the same tokens on perpetual. And you can do with just one token, like Atom, like what we just said earlier today. You can long the Atom spot, earn the auto compounding rate, and then short Atom on perps. And every protocol does this differently. Some are more efficient than others. So Mars was like the most efficient that I've seen in Web3 because you can use the auto compounding token as collateral for perps. So there's like zero wasted collateral. Every dollar that is in that strategy is being a productive dollar. And also it's very low risk because everything is contained in one account. You don't have to manage something on this app and manage something else on the other app. And that's where you start to lose people, because that's managing LTVs and like your liquidation levels is really one of the hardest parts of correctly and profitably managing delta neutral strategies. And so that's why Mars was so good about it. And also, like, I think why this Vault was so successful, because even though on Mars it took very little management, it still takes knowledge about how not just the app works, but also how the traders work, how the traders are trading, and the behavior of each individual markets, because you can easily lose money doing this just by spending on fees, opening and closing positions, and like not being ready to adapt to change funding rates, which change all the time. So yeah, so I think that's why like this Vault was appealing to a lot of people, because they just didn't have to do anything, and you could still take advantage of the strategy and not have to manage it yourself. And so Shred, so Athena works the same way. Athena is a so Athena is targeted for more like institutions, and so they're targeting like many billions of dollars of TVL. As with any DeFi strategy, usually the smaller the TVL, the higher the yield that you can like squeeze out of a strategy. And then as you start putting like billions of dollars into a certain strategy, the yield compresses down, and such that you get to some like kind of industry standard that is maybe not as appealing anymore to most people, or not as appealing anymore to people with lower amounts of capital. Because if you have lower amounts of capital, you can usually get access to like higher yields. For the same reason, if you have $1 billion, you know, you could not have put $1 billion into my managed vault because there wasn't enough liquidity on Mars, on Neutron, or in perps on Mars to support that much capital. And so that's why something like Athena, they do a strategy that is really good for many billions of dollars, but is a much lower yield. I think they're at like 4.5% yield or something, which is basically the same rate that you get for just lending USDC on like Morpho or Aave. And so that's kind of why the industry rates all start compressing when you have tons and tons of TVL. So what SHRED does is think about everything we just talked about with delta neutral stables and earning yield on stables. And so this is SHRED is a way to earn yield on stables, and in the background they're doing a delta neutral strategy similar to, but not exactly like what we're doing on Mars, and also what Athena is doing. And there are other products that are trying to launch similar things, doing a delta neutral strategy in the background. Even Max BTC from Structured could be put in this category, except rather than having their base asset be USDC, their 1x exposure asset is Bitcoin. And so they are depositing into the JLP, which is partially made up of Ethereum, Solana, Bitcoin, and stables. And then they are shorting all the other assets out other than Bitcoin on like Binance Perps. And so what you're left with is 1x exposure to Bitcoin. You get the yield from the Jupiter liquidity pool, and then you also get the yield from shorting assets on Perps. Usually the funding rate is such on Perps that you earn when you are shorting. Of course that changes, and that is what affects the profitability of a lot of these strategies, but in general that's how a lot of these work. And so Max BTC, you get yield on Bitcoin. SHRED, you're getting yield on stables. The delta neutral vault I talked about was also yield on stables. Athena, also yield on stables. So as you can see, getting yield on stables is a very competitive environment. And so you need to do something to separate yourself. Maybe it's really high yield, which is maybe what I would say my vault did good at. It was like very high yield, but not that much TVL could go into it. Or maybe like Athena's value prop is that it can accept a lot of TVL, like many billions of dollars of TVL. And also it's tokenized. And so you get a token, USDE, I think is the token. And now you have an auto-compounding tokenized delta neutral strategy in the background is earning yield. And you're just holding an auto-compounding token that you can then use as collateral to do something else, other DeFi with. Or with SHRED, I would say not only does it have a high yield, they're saying between 10 and 15% yield, but also what they're targeting is a fixed yield. And so this is very appealing to a lot of people that don't want to, it's harder to price in the like profitability of a strategy if it has a variable APY. So if 1 week is 5%, the next week is 20%, how long was it 5% versus 20%? What's the average? You're thinking, you know, maybe it dips down to 5%, and you're like, oh, why am I in this? Because I see this other vault at 8%, and but is it going to go back up soon, or should I move my assets? Like from a strategist, from you holding like custody of your assets and thinking about where's the best place I can earn yield, it's distracting for you to have a variable APY on your stables. And so what they're targeting is, okay, can we just like promise a 10% APY, which not only is already very good, but also something fixed and stable. So you're saying, okay, I know I'm going to get 10% here. I don't have to worry about it going down or up. This is just one number I now need to compare it to my other investments. And so that's a kind of unique selling point that SHRED is going for. Okay, and how are they doing it? So first of all, I just went to their Twitter page, which is at SHRED.fi, and this is their pinned tweet. It tells you what is SHRED, and now we're going to talk about how it works. And so similar to the other delta neutral strategies we talked about, there's a few ways to get even more efficiency out of the strategy. One of which is using liquid stake tokens as collateral. So that's something we talked about previously. If you can use a liquid stake token as collateral, then you're earning, in addition to the strategy, the auto compounding rate of liquid stake token. And so in this case, they're using rep stake ETH, And so then you can even do a strategy with wrap staked ETH where you use wrap staked ETH as collateral, borrow ETH against it, usually for cheaper than what you're earning for wrap staked ETH. Use that again as swap that for more wrap staked ETH, and then add that to your collateral and borrow more ETH. And you can loop this and such that you get even more yield on your wrap staked ETH and collateral. So I'm not sure if they're doing exactly that, but in this way, you are able to give yourself like more yield on your ETH as collateral. They can also do something like where they use wrap staked ETH as collateral, borrow USDC, and then swap USDC for more wrap staked ETH. And so these are ways that you can get higher yield on your position by either taking on higher leverage, so more exposure to ETH, or just 1x exposure to ETH. And so I don't know like exactly what their algo does in the background, but these are different strategies for earning higher yield on your like collateral asset. And then the other side comes from shorting on Hyperliquid. I think yeah. So they take leverage ETH staking positions on Aave. So that's what we just talked about. There are two different ways of taking on leverage for yield on your ETH on Aave, and then hedging them with perps on USDC shorts on Hyperliquid. So if there's a current funding rate of like, you get paid 5% APR for shorting ETH, if you do that with 2x leverage, then you get twice the APR because you're using half the collateral to earn the same amount of like total capital of your short. And so depending on the leverage position that they use with wrap staked ETH on Aave, they can then tinker with how much leverage they're going to use to short on Hyperliquid. And so these different levers that they can tinker with allow them to get a much higher APR than just, I'm going to use ETH as collateral on Aave and short on Hyperliquid. That's like baseline delta neutral yield, and how they are going to get higher is by using these different leverage mechanisms. And so that's probably like the secret sauce behind their algo that allows them to get between 10 and 15% APR or even higher. And you're probably thinking like, okay, that sounds good. A few things, like one, anyone could do that, and yeah, that's true if you have the tools. And two, how are they making this a fixed rate? And so here's why it's different. So what they can do is these rates change all the time. On the collateral section, we were talking about wrap stake ETH and different leveraging strategies for getting more yield on your wrap stake ETH. That changes based on how much it costs to borrow either USDC or how much it costs to borrow ETH. And so these two numbers are changing, meaning that the yield that you get on your collateral side is also changing. The same thing on the short side. So on the funding rate on Hyperliquid for shorting ETH is changing every, I don't know if it's every block, every 4 hours, or what their mechanism is, but it's changing. And so all these things combined affect the like block by block profitability of this strategy. And so maybe for a whole day, it's at 10% APY. Great, that's the fixed rate that they're going for. But maybe the next day, you're paid so much to short ETH that it's up to 20% APY. And so what they're going to do is they're going to take off the top 10% of so say they're promising 10% APY but they're actually earning 20% APY for that day. They're going to take all the extra yield and put it into a buffer contract or a buffer pool. And so just collect that. Keep paying everyone the 10% APY and then taking all the extra and putting it somewhere else into a buffer pool. But then the next day, everyone is like super bearish ETH or something, and it now costs them a lot to short ETH. And this digs into the profitability of the strategy. And so what that means is they're not getting 10% anymore. Maybe they're only getting 5% or maybe even less. And so what they can do is they can then take from that buffer pool and add it back into the strategy, into the distributions, such that the rate that they're offering is still 10%. And so that's how they're going to try and offer this, promise this 10% or 10 to 15% fixed savings yield. So that's the idea. And I think it's pretty cool because there's clearly an interest in something like high yield on stables. This is also all DeFi, like all of this is on chain, so you can check, how big is their AVE position, how big is their hyperliquid short. I'm sure they're gonna have a dashboard where you can look at all of this, and then like think about what Celsius and Anchor, like those were able to attract tons of TVL because they offered, here's a fixed rate, like here's 20% APY on stables, which is insane, but people love their fixed rate savings, and so that's Shred. Right now there was a wait list that you could have signed up for, but I think it's closed right now. Yeah, okay, the wait list is closed, so you'll have to wait until launch. And yeah, like, do you guys have any questions on what Shred is? I think it's pretty interesting, and I signed up for the wait list because I'm myself interested. And then, oh yeah, one last thing. Why I think these are interesting is because, yeah, like anyone can do the strategy, but you have to then manage your LTV on AVE. You have to manage your short position with like stop limits and take profits on hyperliquid. It's just like too much for most people to handle. And also, you're not going to be able to auto rebalance everything as quickly as it needs to in order to be profitable. And so that's one reason why this is appealing for a lot of people. Second is the next step is tokenizing this vault. And so right now you're just depositing your USDC and you're going to be earning like 10%, which is great. But the next step is then tokenizing that. So in return, you now get a token that is auto compounding at 10% APY. And this is where like Athena kind of took that next step. So Athena is not just a vault that you deposit USDC and you earn. You get a token back, which can then be used in DeFi. And so that's the next step for Shred. I don't know when they're going to get there. Maybe they'll see like how much attention they get in deposits, and if they can keep working on tokenizing their vault, because tokenizing a stablecoin that's earning 10% APY in a like fully on-chain transparent way, I think is really appealing. So I'll stop there. Let's check the comments to see if anyone's asking questions about Shred, and then yeah, maybe I end it there or ramble a little bit more. Okay, no questions yet, so I will ramble a little bit more. Yeah, oh yeah, one thing I just wanted to say was here, if you look at the APY of my vault, you can see like, what is this, 115% APY down to 8, like back up to 84%, and then down to 6. And so it's extremely volatile. And that's just the nature with these delta neutral strategies, that they are very volatile. And so just by offering a vault that goes up and down so much in APYs, I understand why that's maybe not as appealing as a 10% fixed rate. And then like this whole section here where the APY was so high, they can just take all of that and like shove it into this buffer fund, so that, like who knows, that buffer fund might get really big depending on how profitable their strategy is. And so then that allows people to just be more and more confident in the protocol. It's almost a safety fund of the protocol to maintain that 10%. So yeah, here's the website. Check it out. I'll be covering it again when they do launch, and we can track how it does together. Cool. Well, I don't see any questions, and I will probably just end it there. So thanks everyone for coming to another week of Yield Lab DeFi AMA. If you have any applications that you would like to learn more about, please like send me a message and I can look into it and we can check it out together next week. I love discovering new apps, and so let's do some learning together. All right, have a good week, and we'll see you next week.